Welcome to Black Businesses Matter, a podcast about why Black businesses matter and the benefits of collaborating and advocating for Black businesses to drive impact. Each episode will cover legacy, hope, Black joy, funding sources, cultural shifts, equality, and so much more. Known as the brand maven who transforms organizations with her storytelling prowess, meet Larvetta L. Lofton, host of Black Businesses Matter.
I am Larvetta Lofton, your host and the founder of the L3 Agency.
We will provide inspiration and action while spreading some joy to a thriving community of Black business owners and leading thought leaders.
Well, welcome to another episode of Black Businesses Matter. So guys, I have to share something with you all because I'm just over here on pins and needles. We are in a new studio. I'm excited. So we were doing this in our home, and now we are in a studio, and we have a new engineer who is amazing with sound and audio. So I need y'all to leave us a review because I think the sound is just remarkable. So I am excited. And so then I'm excited about our next guest because I know I say that all the time, how I'm excited about the next, but I'm always excited when I get to sit with another amazing, incredible Black entrepreneur who is rightfully doing some incredible things where we can also be educated and inspired. So he goes by Mike, and he told me he came on as Michael, then his bio says Mike. So guys, he is Mike, and he is an artist and an ecological design educator who was performing and teaching about music, culture, and ecological design principles in the high schools of Colorado and beyond for a combined of 50 plus years, sharing brilliant ideas and dreaming up some of the coolest, cutting edge ways to live, but not actually making it happen due mostly to the lack of financial empowerment. And so we all know about that, but he's going to tell you a little bit about who he is. But I do want to add this. He is a Denver native. Okay, guys. So he is our first guest out of Denver. So I'm excited about that. So he's going to tell you just at this time, Mike was earning at $14,000 annual with no credit or passive income, trying to support 4 amazing kids and a wife. They lived in a trailer park. And I wanted you all to kind of sit with that. He's a Black guy living in a trailer park. Okay. Need y'all to know that. And he commuted hundreds of miles to work, daily. And so he had discovered he was overworked, underpaid, running on fumes like a gas tank. Many of us know what that feels like. Mike didn't have money, credit, or time. And driving home from the grocery store one day, Mike saw a roadside sign, and he had passed it several times before, but this time he wasn't going to pass this opportunity. He decided to get trained in real estate, investing, business ownership, and financial literacy. And since he and his families have lived completely wage slavery and were living unfulfilled lives. So over the last 5 years, Mike has worked very hard in a specific direction to be successful. He has great success and now has a thriving real estate investing business and marketing business where he's helped hundreds of others thrive as well. Mike has grown his credit lines to multiple 6 figures, done note deals, and owns a rental company that cash flows $5,000 monthly. Come on through. In the past 3 years, he has earned over $200K, guys. Wow. I want you all to say it to remember I said he was only making for $14,000 annual. I just want y'all to sit with that. While he used to earn $14K all year, he has now earned that in a month several times. Mike loves to help and inspire those around him, and that's why he's here with us. So I just gotta put some claps out there. We need to scream out loud and welcome Mike to the show. Hello, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm excited. I'm just excited to just hear your story. And can I just say this? I appreciate you giving us a story. Sometimes people with bios, we give like, oh my gosh, I graduated, I lived here, but we don't hear the whole story. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to build this podcast, because I felt like our stories were not being told, right? You see us on the TV, you see us on social media, you see us everywhere, but you don't know the story and what it took to get us there. So Mike, I got to ask you this. Who is Mike as a little boy?
Yeah. Well, as a little boy, first off, people say, where you come from? And I say, my mommy's vagina. So that's give you a
I
little
love it.
insight into it to me as a little boy.
That's cool.
You know, that's where I came from, is my mommy's, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Just,
I like
you know,
that.
matter of factly, you know, little kids, you know how they could be.
Yes.
So I was kind of on that just a practical kid, you know, just I had a practical mindset. I did imagine, I did have imagination and dream, but pretty practical kid. And you know, this is my mommy side, this is my daddy side, you know.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
mixed, so my dad is a black man.
Okay.
And
okay.
so, you know, I came up in that consciousness in the 80s and the early 90s where you know, we was proud to be black again. You know, they had, you know, cycles. Like it was again. And this time was in the hip hop culture. You know, it's kind of where we got that promotion to us, you know, to be proud of who we are and where we come from.
And was that your thing, like a hip hop? Were you that hip hop kid artist?
Yeah. So as a kid, I was in the music, but I wasn't actually a cultural practitioner just yet.
Okay.
I was taking in the intel, you know, and learning the culture. But being in Colorado, we get promoted, you know, in most major cities, but Colorado being, I don't know, it's kind of a unique space because there was a ethnic cleansing, so to say, in the late 1800s that totally changed the social fabric of that area of the world. So we have no idea, you know, what was going on before there. So I had my, you know, how'd I put it? It was, the come up was, for me, we are suppressed, right? We're suppressed from having all the information we needed to be empowered youth and people, you know, black folks, just indigenous people. We were, that information was withheld from us. So I had to I had to push extra to access this data. Being from where I'm from wasn't easily accessible, including the hip hop culture. So I got fed just pop culture. You know, I got fed pop culture. And in the 90s, you know, there was a lot of organizations that got together around the music industry and the prison industry and kind of collaborated to change the tone and the aesthetic of the music, you know, in the mid 90s, early 90s. So, you know, we moved from like PE, Black, you know, and like Public Enemy and Fighting the Power and all that to like NWA and, you know, like more street reality. And, you know, granted, NWA was not a part of some conspiracy. They were, you know, genuine reality rap people, but because that was brought and introduced into our cultures, to American society and corporate America, seeing how embraced it was, they of course perverted that. And
they did. I agree.
Yeah, just totally.
Because I'm an NWA fan, just for the record.
Yeah, you know, yeah, NWA is, they come from our communities, you know, but then they started pulling people out of communities and that didn't have that same experience in reality, and maybe didn't even really want to express that, and kind of groom these kids to glorify the reality of poverty, you know, living in poverty.
So you were a curious kid and deep kid.
Yeah, so I was thinking about stuff, but I was an athlete also. So I was playing basketball, and I just like every other black kid, I had the dreams to be an athlete or a entertainer. Okay. You know? Okay. And so I'm one of them, you know, I'm a product of that influence. And to this day, like it took me to my mid 30s to start to embrace other areas of life, right? Aspects of life, like just learning about your finances and having a sound financial foundation, whether you're an athlete or entertainer or not. Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
but to your point, though, I mean, Mike, I think what happens though is that that's what was poured out to us. So it's only innate for us to gravitate to that, right? So that's the way I see it, is that, you know, it was poured into us and never forcing us to really look at financing and investing unless you had parents or you had people that sat you down and told you like how to do it, right?
Exactly.
So here we are, this curious kid, aspired to be an athlete or entertainer, still is that kind of in the same, believe it or not, I still think that you still have a little bit of it, because I think athletes, they have a skill of adapting and having a winning attitude. That's truly what I believe. So you're still an athlete, you're just not playing a sport, right?
That
So tell us,
sure.
you know, tell us about ecological design principles. Like, I was fascinated by it, and I just think our listeners will find, you know, it to be fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, just kind of to connect what we were just talking about, it's in the environment, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of where I realize if you submerge any creature in a certain environment, naturally they're going to take on characteristics of the environment that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I kind of cracked that code. And not like it's some secret at the end of the day. You know, if you really just open your eyes, if we open our eyes and observe, we'll notice that our environments are a heavy influence on who we are and how we show up in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I when I was 17, I got a rare form of cancer.
Okay.
It came out of a sweat gland, and they really have no other documented case of it in the world. There was 20 similar cases. So, you know, in that's like a two-bladed sword, right? Where one breath I'm like, oh my God, I'm 17 years old and I have cancer. Like, am I gonna die? What the heck? You know, you question your mortality. It's just kind of scary. And then on the other end, I'm like, well, it's the rarest. No one ever had it before. Maybe I'm special or something. You know, that's the way I had to spin it in my own head.
Good for you.
You know, we're all special.
We are all special, Mike. That's true. We are all special.
Yeah. But you know, the way that I was able to cope with that was part of it. Okay. And so, but that led me down studying about why did this happen? Why does this type of stuff happen to people? You know, why do they get cancer and stuff? And then, you know, you hear the whole, it's genetics and you're doomed. You inherited this. And it's like, I couldn't buy that. I'm like, that don't sound true to me. You know, just in my gut, I don't believe that. That's not, I think there's more to it.
Okay.
And so I kept looking deeper into it, and I discovered adaptive genetics.
Okay.
And, have you ever? And that's just, it's like this science study where it's kind of on that quantum physics stuff where your reality is manipulated by the observer. So whoever is looking at the atoms and stuff moving around, they move determined by how you look at it, right?
Okay.
And then adaptive genetics is talking about you have your genes. Sure, you inherit all these genes from your ancestors, but the environment that the genes live in is actually what stimulates their expression. So they'll express themselves different ways depending on the environment they're in.
Okay.
So when I was 17, I was working at Wendy's, right? In the city. Okay. In chaos, you know, in the chaos of the city, and in a greasy fast food spot, right? And that's a way that Black people their lives have been controlled, is through our stomachs and our food. Wow. And that's I think the whole world, the controlling class, they like controlling people through their food too. So that's another part of it. And so I go home from work every night, and I scrape my skin, and it'd be a film of grease underneath my fingernails. Wow. So sweat gland, tumor in my sweat gland. Wow. You see what I mean? So it's like your environment. I'm like, oh, that's why now. Sure, people in my family had cancer before, but so it's the environment. And so that led me to ecological stuff. I'm like, all right, so we need to be paying attention to how ecology is inside of our body and outside of our body is. Like, what's the health level of it? What's the toxicity versus cleanliness level of your environments, whether it's your own body environment, or your home, or the community you live in, where nature is, what they doing. Are they fracking? Are they, you know what I mean? It's like, it's environment.
Wow.
It's environment. So ecological design is all it is designing and making decisions and solving problems based off of what nature, the intel, the data, the information that nature shares with us.
Nice.
through its relationships with itself.
Wow.
And so I've evolved my understanding of how we exist in this world from, at first when I'm a kid, just like everybody else, like I didn't have that knowledge of how to connect with nature. So to me, it was like, I was scared to go camping. When I was a kid, I'm a city kid. I'm like, and I'm sure most black folks be like, you gotta go in the mountains. What you talking about? No. Bears. No,
I did go camping though, Mike. I did. I might be one of like 5. I did go camping. I did.
Right? Yeah. Right. So it was kind of a rare thing for, young black kids to want to go camping. We're scared of it. It's like, so it's like us versus nature, us against nature, right? It's kind of a common thing. And then I just evolved my understanding of it to like, all right, well, it's us working with nature. And then I'm like, actually, it goes deeper than that. Yeah. The reality of this is that we are nature working.
Yeah. And you blended that with music culture.
Yep.
That's dope.
I came up as a hip hop artist, right? So when I got out of high school, I went to college in Seattle.
Okay.
And I'm like, there's got to be something else too. I wanted to travel. I wanted to see the world. And how can I do that? I could do that through music culture. So I remember I was saying I was gathering on intel as a kid. I didn't know that I was a part of this culture at first. And then in about 17, 18 years old, when I went to school, I started to do that study and that research. And just being a student of life allows me to unlock this information, uncover information out there for us. And so I uncovered all this cultural knowledge, this wealth of knowledge culturally of what hip hop is for the people. And it just really empowered me when I was 17, 18 years old to start to take control of my own life and design my own life. Right. And then doing this study about your environment and how that has something to do with my health. I'm all health driven. I'm like wellness driven. Yeah. So I was like, okay, cultural thing, this hip hop thing, when you look at it from the cultural aspect and not just drugs, sex, and violence, this is healthy for you too. I could use this to cultivate my wellness as well and design my reality. Right. And then it led me to when I met my lady in my early 20s, and she's from the mountains. So she is a nature girl. And I'm like the city boy. So she knew about plants and you could eat this wild plant and this does this to you. I'm like, what? And it gave me another layer of, okay, I can control and design my life with my food and with how I have built a relationship with nature. Nice. Right. And I could take care of myself and be more resilient and more interdependent and less dependent on these big systems that, if you ask me, as far as I'm concerned, they don't really have our benefit, our best interest in mind. Yep. So, so, it led me to that. And then eventually I got led to, because in those communities, the cultural communities in hip hop, and then these ecological communities, permaculture and all these hippies and all this stuff where they want to be with the earth and growing food and all this, a common denominator, a common theme that I noticed is that they all hated money. And I'm like, why are y'all all hating money? And none of them are doing what they really wanted to do, right? Wow. They got all these awesome ideas and great ways that can make the world and society a better place, a funner place to be in, but they're pissed off about capitalism and money. So they're actually, they're kind of making it a more miserable place to be in also, even though they got all these great ideas to make it better. So I was like, there's something there. And then there's a principle inside of ecological design that the problem is the solution. Wow. So I started looking into that like, all right, well, everybody's like up in arms about this. Let me look into it. And sure enough, I realized that I did my studies on economics after that from an ecological lens. Now, you see, now everything that I look at is through this lens ecologically, because that's what permaculture, that's what ecological design did to my brain. It wired it so that I can see everything as ecological, right? I see everything as something in nature, everything. So So even they making drugs in the labs and all this weird, computers, that it's all part of nature. They fit into the periodic table. This stuff exists in the planetary systems of the cosmos. So I'm going into this, right? And again, the ecological design principles that you are taking the patterns and the principles that come out of nature, that come out of the relationships and the exchanges that happen in nature, all these patterns that emerge, that if you sit long enough, you start to notice them. They just pop up into your awareness, and you take that information and go apply it to any situation where you have to solve a problem or make a decision. So that could be you're growing food, or you're organizing a government, or you're figuring out a business organizational structure to pay people or make decisions. See what I mean? Hierarchical, or is this going to be a consensus structure? All these, see what I mean? All this stuff got downloaded in me with the ecological design. So then when I moved into the commerce and economics, I blew it off the lid. And then I had all the cultural background and all the cultural teachings from hip hop. And, that stuff goes real deep. If you go into that, it goes to ancient times and all this cosmic. It goes crazy. It's crazy. Like the type of knowledge that you can access that you would never come close to getting this in a school. So I was in the schools teaching about stuff like this. So it was a few generations of kids that got some knowledge in school that I'm sure not very many places they're finding this information. I'm telling them about the central banks and how to grow your own food and how to build your own banking system and how, you know what I mean? And how the civil rights movement, how that's connected to hip hop, and how the old Negro spirituals evolved into blues and jazz, and how that, that's how music is today. Like there's praise music, there's protest music, there's subversive music, right? Giving you secret messages, coded messages. So it's like, we give them a lot of stuff. I'm kind of a mouthful right now. I'm like, oh my God.
I love it because to me, when I think, like, I was a science girl, I love science, but I liked history, but I didn't like that history so like you're giving science and history, but it's intriguing. It's about us. It's about improvement. It's about preservation, and before it was, we talk about this a lot. About, we get to a point where we're tired of the struggle, right? I'm tired of talking about the struggle. Okay, let's talk about how can we move past that? How can we grow past that? And so I really think that you're like really helping, I think for me, as if I was that kid that was like, I like science, right? I don't really like history, but you making it interesting. For me to be able to digest it and make me understand, who I am, the culture that I feel most connected to and belong to, because I do think culture is a sense of belonging too, for you to be able to do that. And so like, I'm intrigued. And then you go into this real estate investing. So like, because
all applicable.
But it's like, it's still part of nature, right? Real estate comes out of nature, right? I didn't even get it till you start talking. I'm like, it makes sense. It's all interconnected.
That whole eco community is like, we don't have land. We have all this knowledge on how to grow food, all this stuff, but we don't have access to land because we're poor. Wow. And it's just like, all right, well, stop being poor then. It's like, it's teachers in that movement that taught your butt how to open up an LLC. Like that was part of my training in the ecological design, is how to open up LLCs and how those things work. That was my first introduction to entities and all that. Wow. So it's not that the information ain't there for us.
Yeah.
And so, it's just, and the thing is, you got to want to apply it. You got to believe that you can apply it. And that's, I think, a big part of, Black folks, communities, and just communities in general. Like we be having a hard time believing in ourselves and in each other. And whether that's because of like how the negative influences of religion and all that, or whatever it may be, it's just like people get belief confused, like that it's not a powerful tool for us to use in what, in creating what we want to see in this world. So, that's incredible. A big thing too.
That's incredible, a mindset, Mike.
But when you're based in nature, there's a level of belief that I have that no man could shake, because the sun shining what man can argue with me? What person can argue with you about the things that go on in nature? They
That's
can't,
true.
it's like it's
Yeah.
undeniable.
We
So
had a guest on who spoke about having a relationship with nature. And that one was it was an incredible interview because she really helped us to understand how we've been confined. So like when you have a bad day, sometimes you just need to walk out in nature and scream it out and you feel better. Like nature can take that and just feel your oxygen back. And when she said it, I was like, oh my gosh. But think about it. Then when they have a moment, they go out, scream it out, come back, animals do it. And we just have been confined to keep it within ourselves. And that thing lives inside of us. And that creates, to your point, all these tumors and all this other stuff that I believe in.
Right,
but
exactly. Yeah.
And so you're really talking about that. And of course you live in Denver. It's beautiful. Nature is gorgeous there. I will say it's just absolutely gorgeous there. I mean, it's picturesque to me.
Yeah, you can't ignore it.
Yeah, you can't ignore it. Like it's like it's there. If you don't see the beauty, then you're blind. I'm sorry. And that's okay too, right?
Yeah.
That's okay if you are. Yeah. But if you can see, like it's just beautiful in Denver. I say this to say that every major city, I think we have the nature. We just probably take it for granted. Do you think that that's happens in major? Yeah, we just taking it for granted.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. And again though, and also because when we're little kids, we're just conditioned from little kids to not have that value in it the way we do, like just a social status or having that new gold chain or whatever the materialistic things that we are conditioned to hold as the most valuable things in life. It's like we just can get conditioned that way. So it's which is it's cool though, because that means that you can condition yourselves out of that into something else, right? So that's
which is why I wanted to ask you about the condition of trailer parks. We use this term trailer park and it's negative. And let me say this, from what we see is negative, because I don't know that it's all the way negative, because I actually have a colleague of mine. They sold everything and they sold their house. And they now travel in a trailer and they pop up. It's kind of like that. And they find they have joy. They have happiness. They're minimalist. They don't have a lot of clothes. But they love life and nature. And they never thought the dude was an investment banker, and the wife was something. So they were making well over $400,000 a year and decided. So I want to be clear that that's the image of trailer parks back in the day, but they have shifted that into a positive way. And so I say that was the trailer part of this thing, or was it just, hey, this is what we just got to do? Yeah,
that was because we were low income.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
My lady, she found it, and I'm not like, we weren't super poor. Like we live in Boulder, Colorado. You know what I'm saying?
When you said, I was like, wait a minute, that's a different kind of folks in Chicago now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't. I don't want to deceive people like that. I'm like, I was in the 8 Mile or something in Detroit or something.
Come on now, Mike. Right. It's a whole different life.
Yeah, it was a whole nother level. The trailer park we live in, the mobile home park we live in, is gorgeous. So it was a nice place. It was really small, and our family was growing, and it is a mobile home, so it is a trailer, so it does do a certain thing to your mindset, and and that was most brokest times I was. Like, there would be times where I would go weeks at a time with no money in my pocket, where I'd have to be like finding change to put money, put gas in the gas tank to get somewhere. Like, it was crazy, So it's kind of symbolic for my own life, and just where I was.
Yeah.
But
I appreciate you sharing this in your story. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I do.
But, we had a lot of help. We've always had help. We've had family and people that always looked out for us. So it just goes to show you, a lot of people they'll ride with that their whole lives. They'll ride with the relationship currency their whole life, and not just be discouraged from pursuing the financial, the money currency, the financial currency.
Yeah.
And I get it. I get why that happens. But for me, it was like, I have a bigger,
You had a
idea.
big,
I
you
got,
do, you start, it
I got
started
a
as a
big
little
idea.
boy though. So I'm just trying to say
Yeah,
that it
exactly.
started as a
Yeah.
little boy.
Yeah.
Your desire to be curious and inquisitive and figure it out. I think, I still think that
Big
is,
impact.
yeah, you were a student of life and you still a student of life from that.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to talk about now that let's talk about the real estate investing.
Yeah.
Are you on the side of helping? So you help individuals and then you also invest? Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So education is important for me.
okay. And I know that you're in Denver. Are you part of developments? Are you helping people with developments? Tell us about how that's going in Colorado.
Yeah. So actually I have a rental business. It's just a short-term, mid-term rental business in Colorado. That's the real estate I've done in Colorado.
Okay.
And then I've done stuff out of state. I've done stuff in Texas, other
Okay.
places where I do note deals.
Okay.
So,
can you tell
and
everyone what's a
essentially,
note deal? What a note deal
yeah,
is? Yes.
essentially about 80% of the population here in the States, they can't go to a bank to get finance to buy a house. Basically what I do is I can create seller finance notes. What we do, we'll purchase properties, we'll raise the capital to buy properties that people who can't afford to buy the properties in full or even go to a bank to get financing
Okay.
can get, right? So we'll acquire the properties for them and then create what you call as a contract for deed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a private mortgage note that we created with our company, and then we extend it privately to the buyers.
Okay.
And so now we're getting people into properties that otherwise wouldn't have been able to have home ownership.
Nice.
And then we work with them, and we kind of play the bank. And that's like my big passion with all this is I realized that we can be the bank,
Yes, we can.
And that was the teachings from ancient times, is that Black people, we were the bankers.
Yeah.
We did run global commerce at one point during the history of this planet. And we got that information out of nature. Also, we were the high priests in the ancient times were sitting in nature, looking at how it interacted, and they came up with the rules of engagement for people and for business. And so it's not any different either. And so when I uncovered that, I was like, yes, see, I knew it. This is cool. I'm all in. So I'm all in helping people clear up these misconceptions around finances and commerce. And and this rabbit hole goes really deep. I would just mention securities. Just know that we all are born. We extended our securities to this country, to this government. That's a so-called government. It's really a corporation. So when you start uncovering the reality of what's going on here, the people, we have a lot of power in this exciting time right now. And just educate yourself, elevate your awareness about what really is going on in society financially with commerce and how those relationships are really playing out and how you can insert yourself into those dynamics and empower yourself, and then if you empower yourself with this stuff, then what can you do for your community, for your loved ones, and then that's kind of the mission I'm on at this point is we clear up this misconception about how money works, and a lot of other things are going to clear up for all of us, and less stressed out people, safer society. You can send your kids out in the world with a little bit more confidence.
Yes,
all of that,
Mike.
We're living in healthy environments. We start to build houses that nature approves of, and it's not going to give your butt cancer living in it. And
come on,
you see what I mean? Just give people more dignified work.
Yeah.
Build an eco house instead of these toxic ass houses. Excuse my language.
True. No.
And then see if somebody wants to continue doing that manual labor a little bit longer and have a little bit more dignity in their life because they know that they're contributing to the wellness of somebody else's family. For real, not just like we're bending it to make it sound good.
Yep. Yeah.
Feel me?
Oh my, I do, Mike, because it's crazy. I have a very good friend of mine, like really, really good. He's like best guy friend. He has pancreatic cancer, and they're finding out that his building where he was living and doing work, that they're finding out that there was cancer in this industrial building because they're having cases. And so there's now a case. So when you were telling me, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So they're finding it in these buildings that were, we call them slumlords, but there are landlords of commercial properties that operate at that same level. And I was like, oh my gosh. So when you said that, I kind of had a moment. I was like, oh my gosh. And they were talking about it because these buildings in Atlanta, they were originally all forest and nature. And then they built this commercial and literally, this one guy said they disrupt nature. And then when you disrupt nature, this is what you get, I was like, oh my gosh. So when you said that, I just had a moment to share about what you were just saying. Like, this just it just happens. And I think in these major markets, and they're doing all this development, and they're like I'm sitting here, I'm like, but prior to that, it was nature. Like, it wasn't like it was nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm
exactly.
I'm speechless.
I love that you mentioned that disrupt, because we do. That's literally to add a more light and depth to that is that's our position in nature, is disruptors. Like humans, so-called humans, we're supposed to go up into ecosystems and stir things up. Because what happens is, in ecosystem, if there's no human creatures there to stir it up, it will grow and it'll evolve to a certain state, and then it gets static, and it can't evolve past that place. So when a human will come up in there and start a little fire, right, and clear out some stuff, or just stir up things a little bit in nature, then it stimulates it to be able to push to the next level of succession. But the thing with what we've done is we took in our role in nature as disruptors and we perverted it, where we're disrespecting the hell out of nature now. We're not disrupting it. We're disrespecting it now. We're destroying it. It's different than disruption. So like if we were coming in there and doing these eco builds, right, and you're designing and you're considering how your impact is on the ecosystem when you build, it's a whole nother ball game now. Instead of people coming out of there 30, 40 years from now with pancreatic cancer, they're going to come out of there with the next brilliant ideas to make the world even doper. You see what I mean? Like, it's a whole different direction that we can go in as a people, and we just have to make the decision to do that. And that's what I did. I just made that decision when I was 18, 19, and it's just unfolded along the way and got more and more focused in and clear, And so
I love it. I love it. So Mike, you got to tell the people, for those who want to make their dreams a reality through learning how to be a business owner, real estate investor. So can you just drop in, tell us, so we can share how they can get more information from you about that?
Yeah, you can reach out to me. I guess I got a website. It's mynewprosper.com.
I love it.
You can go on there.
Okay.
And it's just my financial literacy service, where really I'm just connecting people with the tools, the knowledge, the resources, the support system, so that they can design their own financial situation. So I'm not doing it for anyone, but I am.
You're connecting them. Yeah. And you're connecting them, and you're coaching them, and you're mentoring them. And I think we need more and more and more of that. So I think it's dope. So as we close, because I can't sit here and talk to you all day, Mike, because I am intrigued by what you're sharing. I do have to ask this, because we do ask this question for everyone. Why do Black businesses matter? Yeah.
Why do Black businesses matter? We're if you want to get into it, we're some of the original people of the planet. It's just like, you can't get around that. Our genetics, some of the data that we hold in our bodies has some of the most ancient keys and knowledge and wisdom that this planet has to offer. And we've contributed to every sector of society, improved every sector of society. Like, it's insane. Yeah. It's like, you cannot deny these things. So, that's, to me, that's if any reason, that's plenty reasons right there to why we need to be included in every area of society and embrace, because we already are in every society sector, in every crevice of society, even when we was trying to be held out of it. Because again, reality is that we're just, this world, this planet is permeated with our energy. It's saturated with our energy. You can't get around us if you come to this planet. So just might as well embrace this and, you know, let us do the thing that we do, because it's fun. It makes everybody else's existence more enjoyable.
That's
period.
So true. That's so
right.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I'm over here like, it's a feeling of like, it's exhilarating when you said that. Like, it was refreshing when you said that. And I say every time I ask that, I get a different response and I get chills in some cases. And then today it's just, yeah, you're right. Like, we are the plant. Like, this is who it just makes you feel a certain kind of way. So that's why I have to ask, because I have to make sure that people that are not Black understand just the value that we bring and that energy as we move and make decisions on who to work with, that we have a place where you can just learn about. I mean, how often I'm being full disclosure, and I feel like I'm a student of life. I haven't met someone who really has blended this ecological with music culture to really blend into financial literacy to build us. Like, that's dope. But that's what we do. So I'm just like, wow, that's what we do. Yep. But I actually know somebody like that. So today I could speak up, but I'm like, oh no, I do. I have somebody like, you know, I'd be like, you probably don't know. No, but I do. So Mike, I do want to ask you, what brings you joy?
You know, what brings me joy is people, people and happiness, just seeing people well and in their power. That really does. I think that's one of the biggest things that brings me joy. Like, I don't really cry a lot when I'm sad, or even angry. It's the most time I cry is when I'm moved with, when I'm moved and inspired by other people. So and what they're able to do and how they're able to show up in the world and make impact in others' lives. So yeah, it's that ripple effect. I think that's what brings me joy, is that ripple effect, man.
That's
just
beautiful.
being able to pay it forward and just seeing how those kind deeds, uplift.
Oh my gosh.
Humanity.
Oh my gosh. Like, I'm over here about to get teary eyed, and I'm like, I felt a little sense of happiness and just hearing you say that. So, I do want to make sure that people know how to reach you on Instagram and Facebook. So if you can share, your handles there.
Yeah. So I got the new.prosper is my Instagram handle. That's my newer one. So
okay.
I'm trying to build a community over there. So,
and that's new.prosper, right? New.prosper.
Yeah, new.prosper.
Okay.
And then New Prosper, at New Prosper on Facebook.
Okay.
And then of course
LinkedIn,
anybody can find me. And on LinkedIn is the same. It is New Prosper.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And Michael White. That's your last name, right?
Michael White is
okay.
Is my government name. And then
he said my government name. I love it.
Yeah. And then Mike Word is my artist name, and that's probably the most visible I am online. So if you Google Mike Word, MIKEWIRD instead of ORD,
okay,
so it's like bird.
Okay.
A lot of people are like, weird? Is it Mike Weird? I'm like, nah, I am weird.
You are not weird, though. I wouldn't call it. Word. No, I don't think you're weird at all. But I think people consider people who have deep knowledge and a student of life. I think it comes across as people saying, oh, he's so weird. No, it's just because you don't know, right? That's just the way I see it. I think sometimes we say words just because we don't have a context to work from. So we say that because I love words. So I just want to say, Mike, this has been truly a pleasure to have you on with us and being with us as our first in our new launch of and I say new launch in the upgrade of the podcast, and just having you to be able to share light. I do want to just, as we close, because I know we got a few minutes, real quick, are there any last things that you want to share with our audience around just you and your story that you want to drop before we close out?
Yeah, just look, keep going. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep believing in yourself, even if ain't nobody else believing in you. do it. We have the power. You have the power to make whatever you think up come into the real world. And I strongly believe that that's a big reason why we got put on this planet is to test that out, is to play around with that manifesting power. So get out there and believe in yourself that you can make your dreams a reality.
Y'all heard it first here on Black Businesses Matter. We thank our guest, Mike, for being with us and just being such a remarkable light to us this afternoon. For those that may listen to it in the evenings, in the mornings, it's going to bring life to you and light to you. So thank you guys for rocking with me and tuning in to another episode of Black Businesses Matter. See you all next week. Bye-bye.
The Black Businesses Matter podcast is produced by the L3 Agency, a culturally sensitive influencer, marketing, and communications firm in Chicago, where relationships are our currency, passion is our profit maker, and people are our bottom line. Follow us on Instagram at Black Businesses Matter.